Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, what it means for us, what it means for the world overall, and how we can see the future through this divine science. If you would like to contact me for readings or for any other reason to take lessons or anything like that, please do contact me. I can be reached at 508-525-0001, and or you can email me at garygomesg@gmail.com. Okay, so uh, essentially, I want to bring up a topic which has been popping up lately uh, on discussion boards, and that's the upcoming Mars-Ketu conjunction. It's right around the corner. Mars and K2 are very difficult planets. Oh, by the way, while I remember, please subscribe, like, share, comment, and I do answer questions. If you're also interested in collaborating, please let me know. I'll be happy to have you on this particular broadcast and discuss astrology topics with you. Okay? Uh, I'm very open-minded. If you want to bring up another system which I hadn't explored, that's perfectly fine with me. And so uh, let's go into the topic at hand. We'll delve into the next week um, pretty quickly, uh, and then we'll go on to the June 7th start of the Mars K2 conjunction. So I'm going to see if I can find the next week, which I set up for May 25th. Um, yeah, okay, so I have that chart up, but it's not showing. So let me correct that. All right, so now it's showing. So what we have right now is the rising sign Leo is surrounded by the rising sign Leo is um, the Lord is still in the 10th house aspected by Saturn. So it does indicate basically some controls in governmental authority and also some slowness, relatively speaking, in the way in which government gets its work done. We know that the bills were passed, or the budget bill was passed by one vote in the House last week. Um, and I think it's going to run into some problems in the Senate. But the core um, elements of the bill, I think, will remain intact, and so that will mean some changes for folks around the country. You can see Jupiter is moving a little bit forward into Gemini. That means increased communications, increased arguments. The ruler of this house is Mercury, which is aspected by Saturn. So again, that does give some pessimism on economic growth. But I think a lot of that pessimism is largely unfounded based upon the charts I'm looking at right now. Venus is almost at its highest degree of exaltation. Um, it's only a few days away from that. But this can also mean that people get more sensitive, more touchy. Mars is also um, heading towards its initiation nakshatra, which can mean sudden reversals or sudden twists or turns in how people feel. So just be prepared for that. So people may be nice one minute and upset the next. The moon is also in Aries. That sort of like brings those particular emotions to the fore. People will feel much more aggressive today. Um, all this past week, at least as far as I've been able to tell, there's been kind of a down energy, and that's mainly because of the moon being in this particular sign with these particular planets, with Saturn, Rahu, and Venus. So Venus can make us a little bit lazy when it's connected um, with Rahu and Saturn in particular, and there's a desire not to really do much of anything. If Venus is exalted, people are frustrated by this. The moon moved into Aries. It wants to do something now. It wants to really move forward and progress. But it's also waning, so it's temporary. So we have a cancellation of debilitation of Mars. Okay, so Mars is in its weakest possible, or close to its weakest possible position. It's about, I'd say, about a week and a half away from its weakest possible position. So Mars, um, people's tempers will be rising a bit, and around June 7th, we have that transit, which I'll talk about in a second. So essentially, we have, excuse me, we have K2 is in Virgo, so people are going to be more critical and more temperamental than normal. Um, and all these planets, we have that Kala Sapra Yoga, which isn't going to end really until uh, mid-July when uh, not even when Mars passes over K2. That really won't happen until late July. Um, when Mars pa moves past K2. So, so essentially, it'll be interesting because you'll feel a lot of frustration building up in the month of June and July, mainly because, and prepare yourselves for a lot of explosive arguments. That's one thing I do see coming. I see it coming nationally. I see it coming internationally. I see it coming, all over the place. But basically, um, this pattern sets up what I would call some tendency towards violent behavior, some tendency towards overly aggressive behavior. The moon, however, is very weak, so people won't really act on that really until around 2 weeks from now, when the moon is full and when the moon is in Scorpio, which is another difficult placement. So that's about 2 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks from now. And this week, we should see a lot of people just essentially angry, but surrendering to um, current patterns. The only real change I see is by the end of the week, Venus will have changed signs and will be in Aries, and that will make people more aggressive romantically, more aggressive sexually, more aggressive materially. So I think this will be kind of an interesting period coming up, especially over the next week, because we'll see a time in which people are more um, aggressive, more touchy, more difficult to please, and that will kind of explode. So you're going to see, I think you're going to see a lot of festering fights coming. It's really not a divorce transit. Um, so the signs which are more at risk for divorce, so Leo and so this would be, but the signs which are more at risk for divorce or for separation from in relationships tend to be um, Pisces and Virgo, but that's not even a sure thing because Saturn sits in the sign, it doesn't necessarily cause divorces. It will cause arguments over finances and will cause kind of a down trend in terms of optimism. But as I've said before, Jupiter is moving towards exaltation. That's generally a good thing. This Jupiter exaltation will not be afflicted as it has been the past couple of times. And I think we'll get through the summer okay. However, I am expecting to see, so let's move ahead to the Mars conjunction, which has been getting a little bit of attention, in terms of causing wars and things like that. Let me see if I can find it. Mars. It's not in this chart. Let me get out of this chart. It's not in here. And let me close this one down. Okay. So I probably saved it in another chart format. All right. So some people pointed out, um, some astrologers pointed out that, so I'm going to see if I can compare a couple of days that astrologers have used to indicate what they think will happen during the Mars-Ketu conjunction. And I think this shared, but let me just double check. Okay, sorry about that, folks. All right, so let's go over here. And this is, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. My fault. All right, this did share. So this is, so at least one astrologer that I looked up mentioned World War One starting during a Mars-K2 conjunction, and that's literally true. Okay, so that was interesting. But I think one of the things that you have here is that Venus was also involved in that particular conjunction. Venus gives the impression that one can win a war. Okay, Venus as a planet tends to be tends to think it's not defeatable. Okay. And if you look at this conjunction over here, the sun's in the 12th house. So this isn't really a nice conjunction for and Saturn. And also one final thing, Saturn is aspecting K2 Mars Venus. Now Saturn aspects, at least from what my experience, tend to produce bad decisions. Okay, they tend to produce what I would call stupid decisions. Now, this war had been building up for some time, and again, you could argue the United States has been building up towards a war posture for a long time. But let's look at, let me see if I can find. And the other chart is the 9/11 chart. So So some people were saying, well, world wars have broken out during this conjunction, and that's true, but and another person indicated K2 Mars was the 9/11 um, catastrophe. So, or the 9/11 attack, excuse me. And K2 and Mars were certainly conjunct, but they were right on top of each other. That won't happen until late July. Okay. It'll happen in Uttara Falguni nakshatra. The conjunction will happen for in Uttara Falguni nakshatra, or maybe in. No, I apologize. It'll happen in. I'm looking for where the sun is. and Purva Falguni or Uttar Falguni Nakshatra. So that can be damaging to wealth. It does not necessarily mean it's damaging to war. And so essentially the or it doesn't necessarily mean it's a prelude to war. The Mars-Ketu conjunction happened in a really horribly destructive nakshatra, Mula nakshatra. This was the 9/11. This is where Mars and Ketu came together. So that's going to destroy things. That's going to cause problems. So let's look at what the June 7th chart looks like. And we also had Saturn, basically Saturn and Mars hemming in all these planets. So that's a very wide interpretation of hemming in by malefics, but the chart is hemmed in by malefics. So so essentially you have a rather different chart in both circumstances than the June 7th chart. So let's look at June 7th. This is so it's important when we're looking at these things to keep in mind that it's not just one planet that causes these particular um, conditions to occur. Oops, sorry. Okay, uh, I'm going to use New York City for. Okay, so essentially K2 I take a very wide berth on because I take the position that K2 essentially uh, and Rahu as well damages the sign uh, as soon as it enters it. So this Mars K2 conjunction, K2 is in Uttara Falguni Nakshatra, and Mars is in uh, Maga Nakshatra, which has to do with ancestors. So maybe established orders will be heard. There is no Saturn aspect on this particular conjunction. If we look carefully, Saturn has no aspect. I'm trying to look for malefic aspects. Um, the moon is in Swati Nakshatra, so this probably will affect trade, but K2 is a neutral Falguni, and this can be a disruptive element on existing patterns of trade. So what do I mean by that? Well, um, there will be revisions or shakeups in world trade. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll run to a war. It'll lead to a war. Mula Nakshatra is uninvolved, okay? And there's no planet, and we have a Jupiter-Mercury conjunction, which is largely benevolent, as Venus is in a largely benevolent nakshatra and a largely benevolent. Um, so this can indicate a rebirth for people. So will there be disruptions? Yes, and let's go to the end of the transit, which will be around June 28th. Okay, July 28th, sorry. And we'll just stick with New York. Not because I have any special love for New York, but just because it's convenient. Okay. All right. So we have the moon along with Mars, and K2, Mars will be in, K2 will be in uh, Purva Falguni Nakshatra. Mars will be in Uttara Falguni Nakshatra. So this does have to do with the wealth, inheritances, things like that. Possibly leaders. So essentially, if you've seen somebody who's been in office a really long time, you can see some surprise upsets or overthrows. Leo is essentially a fixed nakshatra. It does mean systems will change or twist a little bit. Rahu's direct the way I measure things, but we have Venus and Jupiter in the 11th house. So this won't be that damaging a Mars-Ketu conjunction. Will there be riots? Yeah, I think there will be. I mean, will there be problems in the streets? If we go to the map, let's see what it'll be. All right, so we're looking at Mars. So this indicates problems in Brazil, problems in, I would say, so we're looking for um, Mars. Basically, we're looking for Mars and Rahu lines. Some problems in the Middle East, maybe the final um, defeat or resolution of uh, the Russian Ukrainian conflict. Um, and we also see more energy happening in the Far East with China, Japan, um, Australia. So again, like I said, I'm tending to look at more potential for war in this part of the world than involving the United States. And Israel will certainly be fired up around that time as well. Okay, so these are current conflicts. They may seem to hit breaking points, but after that July 28th activity has ended, you will actually see what I would think would be resolutions through either overthrow or let me put it this way, abandonment of old ways of doing things. So actually, and what I'm expecting in the United States is essentially governmental protests, a lot of governmental protests, especially over Palestine, especially over the current government in Washington. Um, but it'll be from both sides this time, I think. So I don't think it's the start of a civil war. That's what I don't think. But I do think you will see increasing violence, especially aimed at leaders. And about 2 weeks in from this, 2 weeks back from this, around mid-July, this will be a dangerous time for President Trump. Um, so either in terms of health or in terms of um, there may be another effort to impeach, although I really can't see how it can go very far given the current makeup of Congress, and or there may be some um, attacks on him or his cabinet. So I'm thinking that's where we're going to see more so. Also, there will be some panic in the economic markets from, I would say, from June to late July. Um, and so this is roughly around the same time that some of the tariffs have been delayed. Um, but I think one of the things that has actually happened is despite the doomsday scenarios which have been played out by a lot of people, the tariffs, depending on how the rest of the world reacts, of course, there are always independent parties, but the tariffs won't have that massive an economic impact, at least um, not here. There'll be a lot of panic about them. There'll be a lot of upset, and markets will not do well during this period between June and July, from what I can tell. If we go back to so that's that's what I'm seeing for given this particular conjunction. But this particular conjunction is in no way as intense as the World War One conjunction or the 9/11 conjunction. It's just not in the same league. But again, we've been looking at governments in danger of being um, overthrown. There are a lot of demonstrations happening in Italy, in um, Germany, and England that we're not hearing a whole hell of a lot about in the United States. And a country like Brazil, and so there are these very concerted efforts to control things in a lot of the EU countries that we're not hearing a whole heck of a lot about in the media in the United States or in the main media in the United States for a variety of reasons. Number one, people in the United States really have typically not cared a great deal about what's happening in other countries. They're focused pretty much on themselves. And to be honest with you, I think that's understandable. Um, but I think you will see some domestic protests, especially in July, um, as and maybe even some rioting. And I predicted that, and actually those predictions have come true, but they've been underreported in most media. If you dig around, you can find them. Uh, so it's so I think it's kind of interesting. Um, the other thing, so let's go back to this week in particular. So we have, so let's talk about, so those are my short-term predictions, and I just want to defuse a lot of the panic that seems to be forming around the Mars-Ketu conjunction because it's not in the same league as the other Mars-Ketu conjunctions. It's not, number one, it's not affected by Saturn. Number two, it's in a different, the World War One scenario was in the same nakshatras were involved, but there was also Venus in there as well. Venus um, muddying up the mix a little bit, and Saturn was a more active planet. So I think both planets in both activities, Saturn played a major role in both um, combinations. Jupiter played a more major role. Jupiter was in Gemini, by the way, during the September 11th attack, so I'm not ignoring that. So, but I think overall it's not as deleterious a combination as either 9/11 or World War One were. And I'll do some more research to track this conjunction, and I'll talk about it next week. The So let's talk about your particular chart. So um, for Aries, Aries has the moon in it. It will be focusing a lot on home expenses and property matters. This is a continuing problem for Aries. Um, and money is, there's more desire for money. Sun and Mercury are together in the second house, aspected by Saturn, and Venus is in the 12th house. So there's this tendency to overestimate how much borrowing flexibility you have for the sign. Ketu's in the sixth house, so we have to watch out for diseases just in general. And all these planets in the 12th house, there is a good potential for saving money if Venus is in the 12th house. That's an idiosyncrasy of Venus, or putting money away. But Rahu and Saturn in that same 12th house tend to cause expenses, and people will be more careful about what they buy. For Taurus, this is from May 15th to June 15th. Sun and Mercury are in the first house. Jupiter's in the second house. Overall, not a bad combination. You have the third house Lord going to the 12th house, so that indicates desires can be muted. This sign will do better with money this week than previously. There should be some financial gain coming in for the sign as well. Mars is in the third house. Again, the sign will be a bit short-tempered or a bit difficult to deal with. Ketu's in the fifth house. Ketu's in Virgo. And so there'll be a lot of attention on children or on familial matters, and also luck. So luck will seem to have disappeared basically from this combination. Um, and sixth house, Venus is Lord of the sixth house, is in the 11th house, so gain through hard work, as similar to last week. And finally, the moon in the 12th house is not a bad combination. Again, it helps to thwart um, for consumption. Jupiter's in Gemini, so let's move on to Gemini, June 15th to July 15th. Um, Gemini has Jupiter in the first house. The first house Lord is in the 12th house, so that means expenses for this particular sign, and especially connected with the home. And this seems to be a common theme, home or education. Mars is in the second house. This makes the sign a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more anxious about the future. That'll last for about another couple of weeks. Then you'll see the sign actually starting to pick up a lot of energy and become more aggressive. Um, for K2, some presents some problems with family members, but that should resolve by the end of the month, or by the end of June, excuse me. And let me just correct that, by June 7th. And let's see now. Libra is the fifth house, and so children will be able to um, clear themselves of any illusions or addictions or any problems they have in those areas. Bad friends will tend to become a thing of the past, bad habits. Sixth house Lord, this sign will become more competitive, more aggressive, more family oriented. Let's see now. Seventh house Lord, a relationship partner is going to be on the mind of this individual, but relationship partner will be away a great deal this month. For Capricorn, for Gemini, this is the eighth house. A lot of focus in career life on eighth house matters like wills and testaments, and maybe even investigations. Uh, and this sign will also gain some fame for that this month, and some small financial gains. Confidence is still a little bit shaken for this particular sign. That won't go away for a couple of weeks. Okay. So just to let you know, for about 20 days, this sign will still have confidence problems. For Cancer, this is July 15th through August 15th. Mars sits in the first house. Within about 2 weeks, it'll move into the second house. So this combination of both good luck but anger at people will persist until around June 7th. After that, though, you'll see a lot more confidence in the sign. For the time being, a lot of expenses, a lot of um, worries about um, friends and worries about children, and also K2's in the third house. So a lot of courage, a lot of willingness to take on challenges, but not a lot of luck. Ninth house, Lord, ninth house has Venus, Rahu, and Saturn placed in it. So again, not as much of a bump up as we would normally want career-wise for this particular sign. As a matter of fact, career matters look like they're really the uppermost thing on this sign's radar, and um, career seems to be waning or moving downward. It'll shift within about um, within a couple of days, but the moon will still be weak until the end of this particular week. So don't expect a large reversal of fortune, but you will feel more optimistic within about a day or so. Let's see now, Jupiter's in the 12th house. So that, again, that is somewhat good for saving money, for acquiring funds. But again, this can be a little bit over optimism in spending patterns. But again, not a bad prognosis going into next month for this particular sign. For Leo, Mars and Ketu will form a Raj Yoga in the first house. This is one of the things I always tell people not to worry about when you see um, conjunctions with either Rahu or Ketu, because under certain circumstances, this particular planet will have unexpected breaks in luck, unexpected setbacks, but also unexpected breaks in luck, because K2's like a flag. It actually increases luck in both um, overall guidance and also in status. So there'll be an unexpected increase in status for this particular sign over the next 2 months, 2 to 3 months. And that's mainly because of the Mars K2 conjunction forming a Raj Yoga in the first house of Leo rising or Leo sun or Leo moon. So this is August 15th through September 15th. Is that sign. K2's in the second house right now. So again, there still can be misunderstanding or even some. Hello? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Hi. Sorry about that. And so so essentially, this particular sign. All right, so we're talking about Leo. So this particular sign should show unexpected luck or unexpected good judgment, almost by accident. And actually, interestingly enough, people with this rising sign can turn negative events to their advantage. So I think um, one of the things that so this can actually mean that if governments are if there are threats of violence or riots or things like that, that could actually work against casting certain officials out of office, and it may actually enhance their positions. So, so this will be something interesting to watch over the next couple of months. Um, so, as I said, there are no negative aspects on the Mars-Ketu conjunction, not that I can see from this chart. Even if we look at things we should call Rashi aspects in Germany, not really. So I'm just trying to see if I can show that to you, but I think I'll save that for next week. But the Rashi aspects right now are just the moon is really the only thing aspecting this particular rising sign. Um, and let me just see now. Mars doesn't aspect it. Um, and so I'm just trying to go back to the June 7th chart. Yeah, I mean, Rahu is going to aspect the combination, but that always happens when Rahu and Ketu are always 7 signs apart. So essentially, that's sort of like the condition. So there will be rivalries with partners, dissatisfaction in relationship life, things like that. But overall, at least from this particular sign, but again, this sign will experience people trying to bring it down, degrade it, defame it. They'll actually get stronger over the next um, week and a half. And I think um, I'm just trying to think of a good way to put it. But also opponents are very weak because the Lord of the seventh house, which is open enemies, is in the eighth house. So they'll have to operate behind the scenes to really affect you or your life. Um, Moon is the Lord of the 12th in the ninth house. So for this week anyway, luck will not be strong. Career life will be strong, but it will seem like a lot of hard work, and there will be a lot of gains for this particular sign. Mars, which is the best particular planet for this sign, is in the 12th house. So it will still have a benevolent effect on Leo, but by only marginally. Okay. So the status and career will be a little bit compromised, but that'll change after June 7th. Um, Let me see now. Virgo. Virgo has K2 in the first house, won't be there much longer. Virgos can breathe a sigh of relief at that particular change because it's been really kind of taxing on Virgo and Pisces rising signs. It'll instead transfer Rahu and Ketu will instead transfer their energies to Aquarius and Leo, and that will give Aquarians more to worry about, people with a sun in Aquarius in particular, and Leos more to ignore, or, and or more to focus on, more to finally focus on. So K2 in this particular sign can be a little picky, it can be a little bit accident prone, it can be a little bit trying to think of the right word. It can be a little bit careless, okay? And that won't last for very long. But keep in mind, the malefics do their worst during the last um, moments they're in a sign. So K2, so be extra careful driving this week. Be extra careful with what you expose yourself to food-wise and disease-wise. Just be a little bit overly cautious this coming week and into next week. But basically, Mercury's in the ninth house. That's a good placement. This will give enhanced luck to this particular sign. Sun's a little bit close to it. Sun-Mercury combustion isn't uncommon, so whenever a planet is within at least 8 degrees of the sun, it is deemed to be combust. Some astrologers hold a smaller arc for Mercury because Mercury and the sun are together so often. But the 8 degrees seems to work pretty well. And some classical books have even larger degree separations for combustion to be rendered ineffective. So you can see over here, this is considered to be combust in this particular program. But overall, what combustion means is the person's intelligence will actually be sharper, it'll be more in tune, and they'll be more confident, but they'll be a little bit self-effacing. Jupiter's in the 10th house, more interested in learning education. Venus is in the 7th house. Um, Again, more interest in educational activities with some kind of a drag on it. Moon is in the 8th house, so there's some difficulty with financial gains. Mars is in the 11th house, so that gives increased financial order to this particular sign, which the sun is placed in between September 15th and October 15th. So I think overall, for people born between that time, they'll start to experience a little bit less trauma accidents and misunderstandings. From so let's go to Libra. Libra has um, no planets in it. The Lord of Libra is in the 6th house, so this will give this sign a lot of desire to work, a lot of desire to take on new tasks. And also with Rahu and Saturn maybe biting off more than it can chew at this particular time, but it will actually achieve some of its goals towards the end of next week when Venus moves into Aries. It's already achieving them right now, but it's having to be done through multiple passes at the ring, on the merry-go-round when you go on the ring. So essentially, the Sun and Mercury are in the 9th house. Good improvement for financial gains. Jupiter's in the 10th house. More interest in being active, in going out, doing things. Mars is in the 11th. Less interest in friends and some problems at home and in relationship life. And let's see now. Yeah, and some pessimism from relationship partners as well. But I think from this particular combination, we're seeing a gradually improving pattern for Libra, and we can see some unexpected gains, especially to relationship partners next month, and maybe some unexpected friendships next month. It's interesting because some charts interpret this as being less attached, or some astrologers interpret this phenomenon as being less attached to material gains. I'm seeing it bring unexpected financial gains through property or through other activities which are Mars-like. So there'll be more interest in athletics and things like that for this particular sign. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Mars, its Lord, in the 9th house. Um, that particular debilitated ascendant Lord, so Scorpio is October 15th. I'm sorry, Libra is October 15th to November 15th. Scorpio is November 15th through December 15th. So Scorpio will have um, a little bit of its energy returning within a couple of weeks, and also from this chart. But again, one of the things to watch out for this sign, it'll be a little bit more accident prone than normal. So be careful about that. It's interesting that President Biden, at least from the maps that I saw, has a Scorpio. This is a side uh, trip I'm giving you, not I won't spend a lot of time on it, is having increasing health problems as is Ketu. So this is a secondary house of health. And He's also got um, the prostate cancer diagnosis has been released. So that's a seventh and eighth house thing. So Jupiter in the eighth house, Jupiter has growth in the eighth house isn't always positive. Okay. So, um, but it's interesting because he's being attacked very aggressively as K2 is going through the last stages of his sign by his friends. Okay. So I think this is one of the things one of the things is sort of like underscores how planets can get worse as they near the end of a sign. Okay, especially malefics. Let's see now. So for those of you who lead non-political lives or non-presidential political lives, this will give increased gains, but there won't be a lot of push through for this particular sign, I think, until the end of the week, and probably not until June 7th. You probably won't feel energized until June 7th or so. Um, Jupiter sits in the eighth, as we said before, sometimes not a good prognosis for health. Um, Saturn's aspecting the eighth house Lord, which is not good as well. So again, this will give some problems in relationship life, some problems with health matters because Saturn's aspecting the indicator for health, which is the sun. And Venus is in the fifth house, so that's actually somewhat beneficial for people with this chart configuration because they can get help from doctors, but it can be delayed. And so it doesn't automatically mean that people with this rising sign have health problems. This can be uh, increased workload. This can be um, difficulty with spouse. This can be difficulty with boss. You know, those are the kinds of things you can read into it. The major planetary period has to match up, and I don't have your major planetary periods in front of me. Okay, so again, don't panic at what's happening about Joe Biden. Think about more regular things like problems with the kids, um, problems with peace of mind, and problems with the spouse, you know, as being more probable indicators for this particular rising sign or sun sign. Okay, for Sagittarius, Sagittarius has, and again, keep in mind, Jupiter in the eighth house can indicate windfalls, financial windfalls. So there may be some additional money coming to you. So it's not all negative. Um, Sagittarius has, so this could be December 15th through January 15th. Sagittarius has Jupiter in the seventh house, so good opportunity for meeting new people. Sun and Mercury are in the sixth house. So again, some problems with health matters. Moon is in the fifth house. Not a bad placement, although is the eighth house Lord, and the eighth house is rather afflicted, so that can mean problems with um, people sniping behind your or gossiping behind your back um, in order to spoil your luck. Excuse me. Saturn sits in the fourth house, increase in status and prestige, but done only through hard work and only through um, willingness to take on new tasks. But the good news about this chart is that Jupiter is aspecting the first house, and so it protects it naturally. That's one of the things Jupiter aspects do. They just naturally protect uh, the signs they aspect. So they'll aspect your house of friends, they'll aspect your first house, and they'll aspect your desires. So Jupiter will help you fulfill your desires. Jupiter will help you in terms of friendships. and Jupiter will help you in terms of confidence. So that's actually a good thing. For Capricorn, this is January 15th, February 15th. Wow, I'm sorry. Today I'm really I need to slow down a little bit. Capricorn has Saturn and Venus in the third house, Rahu's along with it. So again, a lot of desires, a lot of anxiety over financial prosperity though, and especially with Mars in the seventh house, there is some worry about long-term wealth and partnerships. And this is the financial sector, the sign connected with the financial sector. So we're seeing that play out in real time for those for the financial sector. Moon is, and also for governance, Moon is in the fourth house, so there can be a change in leadership. Sun and Mercury are in the fifth house, aspected by Saturn. So that what that means is luck will be there, but it'll be delayed. Um, Jupiter's in the sixth house. There'll be some problem for more conventional thinkers for this sign, for more conservative thinkers. Mars is in the seventh house, so this affects the optimism of this sign. Mars is in the seventh house. It makes this sign feel like it's under attack. And Ketu's in the ninth, a little bit difficult in terms of being understood or in terms of accruing luck. That'll change within about uh, 14 days, but for now it's still there. For Aquarius is February 15th to March 15th. We have Rahu just about to enter that sign towards the middle of June. And basically there's concerns about money or finances right now. And Venus sits in the second house, so there will be help or rescue from people or friends. Um, and Moon is in third house, so desires are a little bit muted. This sign is going to be a little bit less ambitious than it normally is. Sun and Mercury are so less spendy, for lack of a better word. Sun and Mercury are in the fourth house. A lot of um, tasks to undertake at home. Jupiter's in the fifth house. Overall, lucky for Aquarius. Jupiter aspects this rising sign, Uranus in Gemini. So it also aspects the Libra rising sign. So both Libra and Aquarius will have good luck, generally good luck, or they'll be saved um, by Jupiter this week, the rest of May. And Mars is in the sixth house, so there can be exposure to illnesses or stomach problems. K2's in the eighth, stomach problems that won't go away until June 7th. But overall, not a bad month for money or a bad week for money over the next week or so for this particular sign. For our Pisces, Saturn and Rahu were in the first house. This gives disruption to existing political institutions and various philosophical centers. You'll see changes in leadership over the next couple of weeks religiously in religious organizations. That's already happened in the Catholic Church, but a lot of religious organizations will go through that over the next month or so. And Saturn will have religious organizations becoming actually more conservative, uh, interestingly enough. Um, the Saturn-Venus conjunction won't last past this coming week. Uh, so by this time I see you next week, Venus will be in Aries, but Moon is right now is in Aries, and So it gives a lot of focus on financial luck, which isn't very strong right now. And let's see now. Sun and Mercury are in the third house. Strong ambition, but not really being realized currently. Jupiter is in the fourth house. That's good for this particular sign. It actually increases um, career, life, and also one, two, three, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And also the potential for windfalls, for financial windfalls. So Pisces can expect some unexpected financial benefits this coming month. But relationship-wise, it should still stay pretty far away from relationships as far as I'm concerned. And this is the period from um, March 15th to April 15th. This covers. And so educationally, if Pisces wants to do anything educationally, go for it. Now is the time to do it. Or else in terms of um, rebuilding or building a house or buying property, now is a good time to do it, even with Mars debilitated. We can see one other footnote. We can see some real estate shocks or some real estate sudden real estate expansions during the next couple of months. I'll have to look at at what that means. Real estate could be devalued or it could inflate again, but my feeling is it'll be a little bit devalued over the next couple of months. So essentially just in terms of, but I'd have to look at more at deeper charts to say that with any certainty. So in terms of the overall week, not a great week, not a horrible week. Just sort of like a holding pattern for a lot of signs. There's not a big change happening until um, next weekend when Venus changes signs. So that's, so Jupiter changing signs um, was a big shift. Okay, but Venus changes signs relatively frequently, but it's been stuck in the sign for about 3.5 months from recollection. So that's kind of unusually long for Venus to be stuck in Pisces. So it could be a big letdown for people after when Venus changes signs. A lot of aesthetic ambitions may be cut short, but also I think you'll see a lot more love of action than just preparing, than just idealism. So that should be, it can be somewhat positive. The other thing is, yeah, so at the end of, by the end of next month, we'll see the next big changes of Rahu and Ketu changing signs, and Mars changing signs. So that'll all happen in June. Okay, my friends, so let's go on to the time and space report for this particular chart. And I'm going to expand it. I apologize for not making this larger when I showed you the map for June 7th, but right now, let's focus on the matter at hand. The Sun and Mercury are still involved with Hawaii, so this involves Mercury is involved in real estate transactions too, by the way, not just Mars, because they're both legal planets and they're both involved in land to a certain extent. Jupiter is um, you know, Jupiter is not really near anything right now in the United States, so we won't talk about that. Rahu and Saturn are on the west coast of Canada. Um, Interestingly enough, that does spell some kind of um, internal disruption in Canada. There's a Venus and a Mars line passing roughly close to Alberta province. And as I told you before, Alberta is strongly considering seceding from Canada. We'll see how far that goes. Um, it's on a referendum. I don't think they voted yet. So we'll see whether or not that comes together. Um, Venus is running through Arizona, Utah, and close to this area where there has just been a large deposit of lithium found. So that Venus line is very close to a large mineral deposit discovery. Okay, now whether or not, apparently, according to what I saw, it's the largest deposit in the world. So that should be beneficial for the United States not having to import lithium from other countries. But I don't know how long it will take to develop the mining capability, but it, it is somewhat good news. Um, Mars is heading through North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, um, down by Iowa, um, into Missouri, Louisiana, and a little bit, I believe I keep getting those too confused as to whether or not that's Alabama or Mississippi. I'm sorry. I think that's Mississippi. And that's Alabama and Georgia. Okay, so yeah, Mississippi and Missouri are close to each other. So so essentially, this can cause some arguments, some fights. The moon running through this particular sign indicates some disruption in Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, all the way down to New Orleans, and all the way down into Mexico, Guatemala. And the Mars line actually goes down to Nicaragua and passes over Ecuador and Peru and into Argentina and intersperses with a sun line. So you may see the government taking more control in those countries. You may see more civil disturbances in the countries I just mentioned, um, and more communication coming to us about them. So this is Venezuela. Venezuela will has a Mercury and a Sun line running through it. So does Brazil, and so does Chile and Argentina. So and so there's del Fuego, but not much happens in Tierra del Fuego as far as I know. But this does indicate increased government pressure and control in those countries, also in Bolivia and Colombia. We have, and also in Cuba, it looks like, and Haiti and Puerto Rico. So we have a Rahu Jupiter line passing over Brazil, going into, so hitting Rio de Janeiro. So there can be some governmental scandals down there. And also towards the east coast, there's Saturn. So there's some economic pressure on Brazil right now. Jupiter at Greenland just essentially sold mineral rights to Europe. So that's probably why we have a Jupiter line there. Let's see now. We have a Venus line heading close to the Canaries, I believe it is, and also up through close to Iceland So those countries should be fairly well, should be fairly okay, but the Venus line is close to Ireland and England. There can be some potential for governmental scandals in those countries, and also in Portugal, Spain, and France, because we have a Mars line running. It's essentially we have a Venus and Mars line encompassing those two, and the same is true for Algeria, Morocco, and just essentially the entire western portion of Africa. Um, there's a moon line indicating changing governments in Italy, Greece, um, up through Spain, uh, even up close to Ukraine. But I think overall, I'm looking at there'll be more news coming out of Ukraine this week and more governmental control coming out and more scandal coming out of Ukraine, and also a little bit in Turkey and a little bit in Saudi Arabia and down into the Emirates, um, and also Kuwait. So we have, and also Madagascar, interestingly enough. You never hear a lot about Madagascar. Um, as you know, Jupiter line is running up through um, Iran, and Iran is hemmed in by Venus on one side and uh, Jupiter on another. So actually, it should be a relatively good period for Iran over the next week or so. There's a Venus line running through Pakistan and Afghanistan, and a Jupiter line. So those areas should be peaceful for a little while, unless they get impulsive, which is always a problem with Jupiter. And and Moon is passing through Bengal, so there can be changes in governments in Ladakh and Bengal and up through China. The other thing is we have a Mars line running right through China, intersecting a Sun and Mercury line, and also through Vietnam and Cambodia and through the Philippines. So we can expect some, and also through Borneo. So we can expect some governmental disruptions in all those countries. China has really been hurting financially since COVID because of the implementation of their policies. So their economy has not yet, it's improving, but it's not yet sprung back to post to pre-COVID levels. And let's, excuse me. Finally, we have, my apologies, it's been a long morning. So this Mars line has me a little bit worried over here. And the Rahu Saturn line has me worried about governmental scandals in Japan or suppression of the Japanese economy. Also, part of the Indonesian economy and part of the Australian economy. New Zealand has nothing next to it except for Venus. So that should be, so they're probably engaged in some kind of government scandal, but they've decided to take it a little bit easy on it. Um, so that's it. That's it for this week. Um, if you have any questions, would like to make any comments, please do so. I'll be happy to answer your questions or comments. And I wish you all a blessed week. I love you all. I thank you for putting up with me every week like this. And I don't dislike myself. It's just that I know this is a lot to sit through. And I've been trying to give you updates, trying to eke out the time to give you updates during the week. And hopefully when Venus moves into Aries, I'll be more committed to getting off um, my horse um, and down and actually make shorter videos. Okay. So that's it for me for this week. Again, I love you all. Please do contact me if you do want a reading or if you want Vedic astrology lessons. I'm digging very deeply into the Shastra, so I'll be looking up for the chart on the charts for uh, the June 7th K2 and also the eclipse. And I don't think I'm the first one to ever do this, but I'm the first one that I'm aware of that will look and see whether or not there are negative Shastra, which are 60th divisions in on those particular days uh, to find out, um, whether that June 7th uh, conjunction or the upcoming eclipse in September will be damaging. Um, my initial glimpses of them lead me to think they will not be that damaging. They will have an effect, certainly. Every major conjunction of Mars and K2 has an effect. We feel it. That's that's beyond contestation. But whether or not it will have the effects that some people are predicting, or or whether or not you should be worried or not, um, I'm not really convinced that this is really such a major event without additional planets joining in the conversation. Let's put it that way. Or additional planetary influences, like especially Saturn, and especially being in really negative nakshatras. So that's it for me for this week. I'm sure you all had enough of me. Now I'm going to do some other stuff, so I'll see you next week. Bye, and I love you all. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great week. Remember to turn those obstacles into opportunities. There's always a way to do it. Bye, everyone.